Jerry Lewis is here, and he is on Broadway in Damn Yankees, and I am very pleased to have him at this table. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, Charlie.
It's great to see you.
Nice to see you again. We have to stop meeting this way every 15 years.
Yes, indeed. There's a lot to talk about. What does it mean to you to be on Broadway?
I haven't been able to come up with a definitive answer. I'm finding myself, I've been asked that now for the last 4 or 5 weeks.
Yeah, what does it feel like?
By some very, very credible people, and you would like to be fairly articulate. I find no explanation will suffice. It's just, I'm incapable of explaining it.
Take me to opening night. You've gotten to know the crew. They're your friends, the cast,
Love
the
him
technical
immediately.
people.
Yeah.
There's something, you bonded with those people.
Mm-hmm.
It's opening night. You're going to rise up. And then that moment, you hear that applause. Give me a sense of what you're thinking.
Well, that night, what I thought was, and I thought I had done it all. I really did. And when that audience received me like they did, I realized I'm a virgin. I'm just beginning. My God, is this the beginning of what? This could be the start of something big, in the words of Steve Allen. But I also heard my dad, and I thought I was Shirley MacLaine. I heard my dad say, now you got it. Now you got it, kid.
Tell me the story of when you played the Palladium.
I played
London
the Palladium in 1958. I was fortunate in my career. I met 9 presidents, 4 of whom were personal friends, performed for 5 of them, did the Royal Command performance 3 times. 2 of those times, my dad wasn't privileged to that. And the 3rd time when I was invited, I said, I got to have my mom and dad go. So I took them to London with me. I did the Royal Command performance, and the protocol, of course, is that Her Majesty applauds like anyone else in the audience. But they had never seen Her Majesty stand for a performer. And I had done 2.5 hours with a 28-piece orchestra. No one else but me. And she stood up and applauded my performance, as did the audience. And my dad was back in the dressing room. He saw that happen. I walked in and I said, Dad, it doesn't get better than that. He said, it does when you play Broadway.
Yeah. He was a vaudevillian who never played Broadway.
Right.
Yeah. And you're thinking about him when you come on stage every night?
Yes, every night. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And especially at the finish. At the end, I come up on an elevator. Yeah. I'm now suited as the Yankees in this white tux, and 666 is on my back. So I come up with my back to the audience. And I literally can say to you, Charlie, I feel a whoosh from the people in the theater against my back. The scream and the applause at my final appearance is equal to the first entrance. And it's very tough. I've stuck the molars of my teeth up into the gums. I can't lose it at that time. I have to walk down and acknowledge the applause with the company. And I'm fighting losing it. I haven't got a problem.
Losing it with tears.
Yes,
Losing it with...
yes, with happy tears. And you can't walk out with your company and take that bow with tears in your eyes. So I'm fighting that a little bit.
Did you think this moment would ever come?
No, I never did. Because on my 68th birthday, a year ago yesterday, I think I was pretty resigned to the fact that I've got 2 or 3 film projects, 2 of which I'm going to direct, 1 I'm producing and writing. And that's going to take me through the next 3 or 4 years. And I was very comfortable and very satisfied sitting on my boat and doing 50-city concert tour. And I was very, very pleased and happy with my lot. And this came up just out of the blue. And I said, well, if I'm going to go to Broadway...
Now, whose idea was it?
It was Mitch Maxwell's idea, the producer of Damn Yankees. And when he hit me with it, I said, I'm going to have to think about this. And I wrestled with it for some time. But my thought of Broadway was I'd never wind up on Broadway, because to go to New Haven and see if they like this, I can't live through that. But this idea, that for a year this show has been revived from a 1955 classic piece of theater.
You'd seen it then?
Oh, yes. I said, my God, to step into what's already been molded and carefully honed and mechanically greased so perfectly, the music, the score, the company. So I came into New York to look at it, and it's impeccable. It's an impeccable night in the theater. And I'm going to step into that? Well, now what are the downside? The downside is I can't bring Jerry into that. I have to bring an actor to play the role of Applegate, who's wonderful in the show. The role is wonderful. Well, then I realized, prior to my saying yes, I realized I've been playing the devil for 63 years. I've been the most mischievous bastard you've ever seen in your life. And that's as devilish as I know. And that's why they got the idea. And that connected. And I said, okay, if that's what you want me to bring, I'll do that.
Yeah, there are some critics who praise that, and they say, you know, Vince Canby, among others, who's Vincent Canby in the New York Times,
yes,
praised that aspect, I mean, this acting aspect. There are others who perhaps would have liked to have seen you make Applegate Lewis, or bring Lewis to Applegate. Did you have any temptation to do that?
Not really, because if I did that, they'd have busted my back. They'd have killed me if I did that. Because in order to do that, you must disallow the character. Jerry Lewis is a very, very broad, slapstick, obnoxious, sometimes very, very harsh, pushy. Yeah. We can go on with that menu. He does not belong in the show.
Yeah.
But bits of him are fine. Sprinkled and seasoned among the moments in the show, it's fine. And there are a couple of places where we let him out. But you can't, if you respect the material, as I do, you can't hot dog it. And that's what it would be doing. It would hurt the show. Then it's not a team effort. I'm working with this team of 30 wonderful professional people. And I'm delighted and proud to be on the same stage with them. Remember, I had to bring myself up to their excellence. They've done it for a year. Yeah. And they are all impeccable. They're impeccable performers, from the 20-year-old to the 59-year-old. It covers that gamut. Yeah. Nobody's older than the old man.
And they're not coming to you saying, you know, you got to save our show, you got to carry our show.
No,
they're saying,
none of that.
We got a show here. Come join.
That's exactly what they did. And they have a support and a passion for the play that comes through the walls into my dressing room. So that when I stepped out there, I was very proud to be on that team.
Is there anything you think to the notion, notwithstanding the fact you have been working, you have not been as visible over the last 10 so years as you had been at other moments in your career, that somehow in the ebb and flow of the way the public reacts, you've always been a presence, but more visible at some times than other, that the public was just ready for you?
I feel that. That's what that audience is telling me every night, that they were ready for me to make some noise. And that they're telling me that. And I'm feeling a groundswell in New York. I have cab drivers that are yelling, Jerry, terrific, you're on Broadway. I have other cab drivers that are waving that don't speak English, but that are waving and saying.
Yeah.
And you feel that. You feel it in a hotel. You feel it in cabs. You feel it in restaurants. The city is an electric city in the first place. Not when you're not doing anything. When you're doing something and you are visible.
When you're part of the conversation of this city, there's no better place to be.
They say
ever.
to you, thanks for being a part of the fabric.
Right.
And I cannot tell you, Charlie, what I went through Monday night when we were dark. I was shattered.
Depression, I want to be there.
And the kids in the company, on Tuesday of last week, were taking our nighttime bow from the Tuesday performance. And I said, the last curtain came down, and I'm just so full of this rush, and I said, you know, tomorrow we do it twice. So this one girl comes over to me and says, Jerry, there's no one here that's 69 years old. We need a rest. I think it's just marvelous.
Yeah. Let me just make one quick note of, this is also a great time for you. You have a new, how old is Donnie? How's your daughter?
Danny, my daughter, Danielle.
How old?
She'll be 3 next week.
Doesn't get any better than this. Broadway,
oh my God.
Kick into the career thing, doing something you love.
And she's a daddy's girl. A daddy's girl. And I finally got Nutty Professor on, and I've got Eddie Murphy to do it. I'm executive producer on that project. Everything is...
Murphy's going to do Nutty Professor?
Yeah, the remake, yeah. And it's wonderful.
Yeah. Now, do you own that, and therefore...
Oh, sure.
Of course. Of course. Of course.
I'm the author. I own it. And I've gone into business with Universal, and we acquired the services of Eddie Murphy for a lot of bucks. We're going to make a good movie with him.
Let me just touch some things we've talked about before in our number of encounters that we've had. Back to your father and
Yes.
your mother, show business family. Was there ever any chance that you would have done anything else? I mean, was it just destiny? It was genes. It was as deep as you could get it.
You know, when they put you in a tux at 5 years old.
Yeah. What was it you sang when you first came out?
I sang "Brother, Can You Spare a Dime."
Right.
It was the Depression song in 1931. Yeah. When you're put in a tux at that age, it isn't likely you'll be at Florsheim selling shoes.
Yeah.
There is no way you're going to be
Or be in medical school or anywhere else.
Or anywhere.
Yeah.
Or a truck driver or a cop or a fireman.
Because the magic of entertaining and making people happy and making them laugh and making them think and making them react and touching their heart and soul, if you can do that.
But you have to understand something, Charlie. I watched my father do all of that. But that's not where it was coming from for me. It was coming from seeing the satisfaction he got and the joy and pleasure that he got from giving that to them. It's not a selfless act. It's a very selfish act of giving joy to others or seeing a child in a wheelchair that doesn't need that chair anymore. That's very, very selfish because the child's never going to get from that what I get from that.
You get more from...
Of course.
Than
much more. More than the parents that kiss my hand and say thank you for what you've done to my child. They don't even know what satisfaction is. That kind of joy is totally selfish. Though it appears to be selfless, when I walk on that stage tonight, that audience is grateful that I've showed up to give them their money's worth. They don't understand how grateful I am that they're there for me to do for them.
Because?
I get all of the benefits.
It's not being a star, it's not...
No. Hey, it beats the hell out of being a hoofer.
Of course it does, but it is something else for you.
It borders on religion. I hate to get into that, but I don't know where to go after this kind of rush.
Then how difficult was it for your dad, who says to you, this is not the best as it gets. The best that it gets is Broadway, and never to make it to Broadway, never to reach the height?
Because it was his choice not to make it. He was satisfied.
Yeah.
My dad was not only better than I, but he was my teacher. He did it well. I'm still really rough. If you had him here and you could see the two performers, you'd see the amateur and the professional.
Well, when was it you walked off the stage and he said to you, not bad for an amateur?
That was after a show where I did about the best performance I ever did in my life. That was at the Sahara in Las Vegas. I was doing a show benefiting St. Jude Hospital, and everyone in that audience paid $5,000 a seat, and we had 1,100 people in there. And I did the best 2 hours of my life. And I came upstairs in the dressing room, and I said, well, what do you think of that, Dad? He said, not bad for an amateur. Now, I said, Jesus, when does it get okay for you? He said, when you don't turn your back on an audience. He said, you did a gag with the band, and the two of you, the orchestra and yourself, had a wonderful laugh, and you turned your back on your audience. Other than that, the show was perfection. He said, you'll get it.
And are you sure that he thought you got it?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. He was not hard on me at all. He was a great, great teacher. And he used to say to me, do what I do, but listen to what I say. He was not, don't do what I say, do what I do.
Yeah.
He said both. Do what I do, but listen to what I say.
How's Dean Martin today?
From what I'm told, he's doing okay. I can't... Dean is a strange man. He's a recluse and enjoys that. I have always been under the impression that reclusivity, if there is such a word, was something that is not joyful. He can tell you different. He's enjoyed that all of his life. I'm the only one that ever got in. I'm the only one that ever got past that facade that he needed for protection of his own private time.
Well, I mean, whatever you think of Shirley MacLaine's book, I guess there's a part in that book in which she says he wouldn't even take Sinatra's call, would drive Sinatra crazy.
Sometimes he'll be that way.
Because he just wanted to be alone in his room.
If he did it to his children,
a Western
why couldn't he
on
do it to
television.
Yeah.
And he did it to his children.
Yeah.
But you could get through...
Yes. We had 10 years together where we were united, like two brothers.
But today, you can get through.
I can get through to him, but he will not allow me to impose my thinking on him. When I say, I know you got problems with your liver, I'd like you to see the doctor. Don't do that.
Yeah.
Please don't preach, I'm fine. I don't tell you how to live your life. And I really have every right to live mine my way. And when he tells you that, you have to respect that.
Yeah. You know that the chemistry the two of you had was as good as it gets in terms of two performers.
You bet.
What makes that? I mean, how do you figure that?
Well, I know what it was.
What was it?
I was the creator of it. I wrote it. Let me put it to you this way. Do you really believe that two men could gather together $400 million in 10 years with the following material? He would say, did you take a bath this morning? And I said, why is there one missing? Are you going to tell me that someone's going to get $400 million for that kind of material? So what was it?
Yes, tell me.
It was Damon and Pythias.
Yeah.
It was the love of the kid for the older guy.
Yeah.
It was this handsome, marvelous, beautifully Adonis-like man on a stage with this monkey. He was the organ grinder and I was the monkey. And my whole premise in the original writing was sex and slapstick. And we made that work. But what made it work was that audience, not unlike this audience in the theater here, knew of the love I had for him and the love he had for me. And they watched two men, crazy about one another, having the best time and being paid enormous funds, like incredible numbers, for going out and making complete idiots of themselves to give an audience pleasure. That's all it was.
You said that he's the genius behind it.
Yeah.
Why is he the genius behind it?
Well, because for the same reason that the Great Wall has been there 700,000 years, or however long. Dean had a spine. He was the spine that everything worked around.
Yeah.
And had he had another timing, if he didn't have this impeccable, exquisite timing, that he didn't even understand, because you're born with that kind of timing. And he also had, this sounds like a plug, but he had funny bones. He didn't have a funny mind, and he didn't have a sense of humor that was better than his funny bones. It came from the marrow in his bones.
And funny bones are what?
Funny bones is you're born with it. You're born with the ability to time, the ability to make something funny. Dean would not understand his own comic actions. For example, a slice of apple pie comes this big on a plate. He would cut the piece as you and I would. Yeah. But he would cut the piece that we think is going in the mouth, but would fork the larger section and then hit his kisser with it. Yeah. Now, this was marvelous visual comedy that he himself didn't know he had the ability of, but he did it. Yeah. And I would say to him, how can you question where that came from? You did it. You didn't see it somewhere and repeat it. Yet this is your sense of humor. And he used to look at me and say, how do you notice? You're 10 years younger. I said, there's no calendar on intelligence. What are you talking about? Because I'm 10 years younger, I can't make sense.
And when you began, he was 28 and you were about 18.
I was 18 and he was 28. But he had the most brilliant sense of comic timing of anyone that's ever lived in the business.
You wrote the material.
Right. Right. I put it together and had an idea.
You know, and you were considered the business genius. You were considered the creative genius.
Jerry was considered everything.
Did that bother him?
Ultimately, yes, of course.
Because he wanted to prove that the handsome man could do it without the monkey.
He would have liked to have been at least recognized while he was a part of that team. Dean was discounted. They treated him with indifference. They would write a whole opening night review of what Martin and Lewis did at the Copa and never mention Martin. I don't know that I could have made 10 years of that. It was Jerry this and Jerry that. But Jerry this and Jerry that couldn't have functioned without the spine. Without, you can't get that trout unless you do that. Yeah. He was the fisherman. And he reeled me in when necessary. And he let me play when necessary. And he was never given credit for that.
His decision to break it up?
No, mine.
Your decision?
Mine. Sure. I provoked the breakup.
By
saying to him, I know you got to do some other things, and I do too. I just felt, not unlike the last Joe Louis fight. We knew he was going to get knocked through the ropes,
Yeah.
and we all wished he had quit one fight sooner. I was afraid we would go from the dignity of what I saw bloom into magic to get knocked through the ropes, ultimately, because we were chipping away at one another and it was starting to happen. And I said, it's time. We should really stop this.
When you talk about great emotional moments, and there is the moment on stage with Damn Yankees, there is, I assume, the moment when you and Dean Martin came together and you
Yes.
knew you had something going there. That
You
wasn't
bet.
a moment. How do you rank the moment that he walked out on stage when
Frank brought him out?
brought him on? Where does that stand?
The top of the list, probably.
Because?
I love him. Love is stronger than anything. He's like my son. He was like my big brother, but now he's like my son. And that happens when age happens.
And there's no doubt that he loved you as much
Oh,
as you loved him.
I never had the slightest question in my mind. At the time we were breaking, when we were hurting one another because we didn't know what was happening to us, I had some questions about that. Now, when he walked out on that night on September 3rd, 1976, his eyes looked in my eyes and he said it all. He missed me for 20 years and I missed him. And we shared that with the American public, and they loved it.
But you couldn't visit him now. I mean, he wouldn't see you now.
No,
Because of...
he didn't, I don't think he wanted that to begin a whole new start again. I think that he had some pangs about the fact that we did indeed split. I think that he's carrying some baggage there. And I'd like to think that I've unloaded them, but I might very well be carrying some too. I'd have to check with Carl Manager and find out.
You seem, I want to show some clips here in a second, but you seem today so much at peace. And because you and I have had conversations before, I
Yes.
know some of the things you have gone through, and I know some of the anger you felt about people in my profession.
Right.
I know how you felt they didn't understand, and they didn't care, and didn't understand what you were contributing, and all those kinds
Right.
of things. Is it that you've just gotten to the point where it doesn't matter? What's going on?
No, I haven't changed my There's one thing you can't fix. You
Yeah.
can't fix the way the blood flows through the aorta. No matter what you do intellectually, you can read the thesaurus from now till Tuesday. This is going to flush through there at a certain
So
rate.
it's going to hurt regardless if somebody says something negative.
You bet. You bet.
So what's changed? Why
But the
don't you get
change
angry?
is that I recognize it's not if you can't beat them, join them. What I recognized was that there are things in this life that can get desperately clouded if you're not careful. I was allowing my nobility of being this integrity-ridden man to take on the media and the press because I was going to change them. I was going to have them understand that Ayn Rand and Fountainhead is still alive and well.
You were going to overwhelm them with
Yes.
the superiority of your argument.
That man can indeed be everything he wants to be and still be that with nobility. I wasn't getting through to the guy that then took that nobility in a one-on-one and then wrote whatever the hell he wanted. He shattered me. And I put him on my list of anger. And before I had 1,000 of them, I was terribly angry. So I now have decided, you be as noble as you need to be, and I'll make my integrity work for me, and not really be too terribly concerned about who knows about it. That's where I've come to in my life.
And how did you get so smart?
You get to be 69, and it's wonderful. With it comes a cake, a candle, and wisdom.
All right, we got a lot more to talk about. Take a look at this. This is from Damn Yankees, Jerry Lewis. It is a big hit here in the Big Apple. Take a look.
I'd sit in my rocking chair, so peacefully rocking there, counting my blessings by the score. The rack was in fashion, the plagues were my passion. Each day held a new joy in store. Was anybody happy? I see cannibals munching, a missionary luncheon. The years may have flown, but the memory stays, like the hopes that were dashed when the stock market crashed. Ah ha ha ha, those were the good old days. I'd walk 1,000,000 miles or more for some of the gore of those good old days. Oh yeah.
What are you at heart? I mean, are you a comic at heart? That's what you are?
I'm in everything, I guess.
Yeah.
Really in everything. My dad was in everything. He was a comic. He was a singer.
Yeah.
He was a monologist, a great musician.
Could do great monologues?
Yeah, he did everything. I mean, he was the handsomest man you ever saw in your life. And he'd put a hat on, he was the funniest man you ever saw. And he would make these wonderful transitions where he'd be singing a love song to a lady and then he'd be in a pratfall. He did great mime. And I really have done everything that my father did. I'm doing everything that my father did.
And how well did he do? I mean, how much was he...
That's what I almost got into before, Charlie, when you mentioned he never played Broadway. He never got any further than vaudeville. Yeah. The nickel circuit here in New York, you played Loewy's Pitkin in Brooklyn, then you played the Loewy's 183rd Street. And he did burlesque, and he did the Borscht Belt, the Catskill Mountains. But my dad was a very unique man. He knew of his abilities and his talent, but he was very satisfied to clothe my mother and me and feed us 3 squares and have a roof over our heads, and that was his responsibility. He never needed any more than that. He was I would say to him, do you realize that Jolson's at the Winter Garden Theater and you should be across the street? And he'd say, he needs to be at the Winter Garden Theater. Yeah. I'm very happy at the Browns Hotel in the Catskill Mountains.
And you were sure that he was?
And he was. He was. As long as my mom and I were taken care of, he couldn't wait to do the show every night to get the joy of making people happy while he was taking care of his family.
Film career. Take a look at this. This is Funny Bones, You're Not Fun. I said that to you.
Oh, on occasion.
No, but they may have said that performance wasn't so good.
Right.
You died.
Right.
But no one's ever said to you the equivalent of saying, no talent.
No,
find
no.
another job.
No,
you're in the wrong place.
No, I've never had that happen.
You've always known you could find some way.
Oh, yeah.
Let me go back. How much joy did filmmaking bring you, that period of the time after Martin and Lewis split up, that you began to make films, and you began to have people around the world, everybody always talks about the French, but people began to say, this guy is a genius. This guy is a very, very good filmmaker.
It was a great time. It was a great time. But you don't stop being a great filmmaker if you were one.
And were you, in your judgment?
In my judgment, I was getting very close.
Yeah.
Because I learned my craft. I took 20-some years of good learning before I ever attempted it. And I've written some things I'm very proud of, and I directed some things that I'm very proud of. And there are other things that I'd love to redo.
Like?
Some of the things I'd like to redo?
Yeah.
About 75% of the work.
Would you? Another shot?
Yeah, but I'm very, very proud of 3 on a Couch, Nutty Professor.
Nutty Professor.
I'm really very proud of that writing.
Is that the best for you?
Yes, yes. That's, you know, if a good filmmaker says to you, I've had one in my body of work, that one great work, I've had mine.
Why do you think, did it bother you that there was this notion in America that you were more appreciated beyond our borders than you were within our borders?
Well, that's a misnomer. That's never been the case.
Okay, that's what I'm asking. It's not true,
the American public have been there for me, and they've kept me alive for 64 years.
But there's not that thing that we believe is there, that they put you on this pedestal. They love you.
It's for
but it's sort of, you know, that this is...
We have to understand where they're coming from, Charlie. And the other misnomer is that it's not France. France is down there about 6 to 7.
I know.
It's bigger in Japan, Australia, the Netherlands, Spain. Italy and Germany are all huger than France
and they see you in the same line with Buster Keaton and Charlie Chaplin and Jerry Lewis, and that's what it is.
Yeah.
Because physical comics.
Because they're not looking at the performance. None of these foreign countries look at the performance. They look at the work that went into getting it on the screen. That's why we learned the word cinema from them. They put a shirt and tie on to go to the cinema in the evening. They have an intermission in a 2-hour film that needs no intermission because they want to have a glass of wine and talk about what they've seen up to now. The American audiences don't do that with films. But still, the French just have raised their toasts to the man who put Jerry on the screen in this work as the writer, the director, and the producer.
Which was you.
And when Martin and Lewis played France,
yeah.
Our films never did over $400,000 in the country. A Jerry Lewis directed film did $2.5 million. That's the difference. And that's where all of this French dialogue has come from.
All right. Roll tape. The Nutty Professor. The Nutty Professor. Here it is. The telethon in muscular dystrophy. How much money have you raised? $1 billion?
$1.4 billion to date.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And the critics, you say, we continue to do good work and are unfazed by the criticism.
I can't be deterred. I can't stop. I'm borderline on the threshold of an answer. With genetic engineering as it is today, with DNA, and the people that I rub elbows with every day of every week of every year for the last 10 years that are telling me that what I was told 45 years ago is no longer the case, that I'll never see such a thing as a cure. They're now telling me that maybe for my 70th birthday I'll know a cure.
A year
Who's
from
going
now?
to deter me? Who's going to stop me? A splinter group of idiots? No, not a chance. Not when I see what I've done and where we turned that money into and what we've gotten from it.
Have you ever just talked about how you got, what motivated you to do this?
Never.
And won't?
No.
Never?
There's no need to. I just need to continue to do it. The why of it is not important.
Yeah. How long will you be in Damn Yankees?
2.5 years as it stands right now. I do 6 months.
Years?
Yeah. I do this 6 months, then I stop to do the telethon for Telethon 95.
Yeah, how long is that? For a month? Or?
That's for a month.
Right.
Then we come back and open the national company in September, and September of 95, I take it to September of 96. We finish at the Corinne Theater in San Francisco, and then we do the film. That'll take me to the end of 96.
The film for Damn Yankees?
Damn Yankees,
okay.
yes. Then January of 97, I open it in London at the West End, to January of 98.
You're not going to get tired of it after all this?
No. Then we take it to Paris for 6 months. So I'm, as George Burns would say, I'm booked through 98.
George Burns says I'm booked through my 100th birthday
Yeah, right.
at the London Palladium. It's great to see you, my friend. Thank you very
Charlie.
much.
It's always a pleasure to be with you.
Thank you.
And we'll do it again. I'll be here long enough where you may need me again.
I will too.
Okay.
All right. Jerry Lewis, I thank you. Damn Yankees here in New York. When you come here, if you are here.
At the Marquis Theater.
At the Marquis
on
Theater.
Broadway.
On Broadway.
It's not one of those side streets. It's on Broadway.
Yeah, where his dad always wanted to go. Thank you again.
Thank you, Charlie.
My thanks also to Jerry Adams. We look forward to seeing you on Monday night. See you.
Ladies and gentlemen, Jerry Lewis.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that lovely, wonderful, warm welcome. It's a thrill I cannot expound on, being here again. There are not that many performers that can say they have played the Royal Command performance more than once. And this is by popular demand. It was 23 years ago, the first time. I have to tell you about this man in Central Park. I'm just walking, minding my business, and I see this elderly man crying like a child in Central Park. And a police officer walks by and said, "Can I help you, sir? Are you all right? Can I assist you?" And the old man said, "No, I appreciate your help, officer. There's really nothing you can do, you see. I'm 83 years old, and I lost my wife a couple of years ago. And shortly thereafter, I met this lovely Swedish girl, 27 years old. And we got a place together, and for the last 2 years, I've had sex every day, 2 and 3 times. The wildest, most Friend-headed sex any man could ever dream possible. Oh. The police officer said, then why are you crying? The old man said, I forgot where we live. You were explaining that to her? I forgot where we live. I'm flying on the plane from Los Angeles to London, and seated right in front of me is a rabbi and a priest. Now, you can't help but overhear what's happening because it's very close quarters on a plane, right? Well, the stewardess is checking to see if people would like to have a drink after we take off, and she approached the rabbi first. She said, Rabbi, can I get you a drink after we take off? The rabbi said, I want a tall Scotch and soda with a twist. She said, fine. Then she approached the priest. Father, may I get you a drink after we take off? The priest was quite indignant. He said, young lady, before I would allow alcohol to pass through these lips, I would rather commit adultery. The rabbi said, hold my order. I didn't know we had a choice. Dumb joke. I love dumb jokes. Do you like dumb jokes? You know what a wrench is? A wrench? That's where Jewish cowboys live, a wrench. Hey. Do you know why a cow wears a bell? Because his horns don't work. Did you hear about the nearsighted vampire that bit Dolly Parton on the neck? Twice? I should have quit the rabbi, I think. All the performers on this show, ladies and gentlemen, are influenced by great performers in the past. We've all paid our dues, and we've done it by reminding audiences that there are great performers that we learn from. I would like to pay my personal tribute tonight to the late and great Al Jolson. Say! Everything seems lovely when you start to roam. The birds are singing, the day and choose gray. But wait until you are further away. Things won't be so lovely when you are all alone. Here's what you'll be saying when you are far from home. Mammy, Mammy, why the sun shines east, the sun shines west, and I just learned where the sun shines best. Mammy, my Mammy, why my heartstrings are tangled around Alabama. Mammy, I'm coming, and I am sorry that I made you wait. Mammy, I'm coming, I just hope I'm not late. Mammy, Mammy, I walk a million miles for one of your smiles, Mammy. I've been away from you a long time. I never thought I'd miss you so. Somehow I feel this love is real. Near you I long to be. The birds are singing and it's songtime. The banjo's strumming soft and low. I know that you yearn for me too. Swanee, you're calling me. Ha, 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 Swanee. How I love you, my dear old Swanee. I give the world to thee. Among the folk and me, I even though my knees wait for me, bring me down by the Swanee. The folks up north will see me no more when I get to the Swanee shore. Swanee, Swanee, I'm coming back to Swanee. Mammy, Mammy, I miss the old folks at home. Well, weep no more, my lady. Sing that song for me. Sing it soft and low, why just as though you had me on your knee. A million baby kisses I'll deliver the minute that you sing the Swanee River. Rockabye, your rockabye baby with a Dixie mellow, Dixie mellow.
3 cheers for the Majesty. Hip, hip. Hooray! Hip, hip. Hooray! Hip, hip. Hooray!
As usual, Her Majesty is keen to make her way backstage to thank everyone involved in tonight's performance. The producer and director of the show, Ian Hamilton. Marcus Plantin, controller of entertainment at London Weekend. Roy Hudd, honorary chairman of the Entertainment Artists Benevolent Fund. Alan Ainsworth, the musical director. And Brian Rogers, who staged and choreographed the show. Her Majesty meets violinist Nigel Kennedy and pop idol Janet Jackson. David Essex and Aspects of Love star Michael Ball. The cast of Coronation Street proved to be a hit tonight. Here's Julie Goodyear. Lance Burton, the magician who flew over from America especially to appear on the show, as did Elaine Boozler. The Argentinian gaucho's rousing performance obviously impressed Her Majesty. Not to mention Freddie Starr. And of course, Tina Turner. Guest presenters there, Edward Woodward and Selena Scott, alongside Jerry Lewis. David Frost and Sir John Mills, who gave the loyal address at the beginning of tonight's performance. So, from all of us here at the London Palladium and the 1989 Royal Variety Performance, this is Steve Jones wishing you a very good evening.